You're listening to the Daily Business News podcast from BBC Radio Ulster. The Chancellor George Osborne's facing increased pressure to abandon the government's controversial 3p a litre increase in fuel duty. That, of course, is planned to come into force in January. Labour is calling on the government in a Commons vote this afternoon to delay the tax hike until at least next April. It was due to be introduced last August, but the government postponed it once, and now they're under pressure to do the same again. The Financial Times today are reporting that the EU is objecting to Ryanair's plans to take over Aer Lingus. They say that Ryanair hasn't addressed all the concerns that the Competition Commission has about the deal. The so-called statement of objection by the Commission takes Ryanair one step closer to having their takeover plans rejected, and that would be the third failed attempt to take over Aer Lingus. They're nothing if not persistent in Ryanair. Now, the Ulster Bank Business Achievers Awards are now open. The companies have got until February to apply. But the thing that caught my attention about these particular awards was the discussion at their launch about whether business awards are even worth entering at all. Jim Immink runs the Small Business Can website, and he was one of the speakers. So I asked him if awards aren't really just a time-consuming waste of resources.
I used to be one of those skeptics about Business Achievers Awards and any type of award. And when you talk to people that actually enter, they say they get a few things from it. The first thing what happens is because you enter the award, it nearly forces you to take a step back from your business because you need to start writing down and telling the story about your business. So that's a very useful exercise in itself. It is the networking and the support you get in getting the application in. And then once you become a finalist, the PR and the other added benefits are tremendous. And today there was a story about a company that actually, because they won an award, got awarded a nearly 300k contract. Small company from Tyrone, but because they won a few awards, they were deemed credible, and that got them the contract.
So actually, even just being on a shortlist can have an advantage in terms
Absolutely.
of your profile.
Absolutely.
Does it really mean anything anymore when so many different people have a trophy sitting on their desk?
I think there's a variety of awards, and I know there's the awards where you pay to enter and you're nearly guaranteed that you get some kind of place in the finals. If you're thinking or considering entering the awards, it is all about telling the story of your company, and having an awards as part of your story is just good for business.
There you go, that's Jim Immink there, who runs the Small Business Can website, putting up a very strong defence of why people should bother entering business awards at all. Executives from some of the world's most recognised companies are due to give evidence in Parliament today on the issue of tax avoidance. We'll be hearing more on this later in the programme. The head of Google, as well as senior managers from Starbucks and Amazon, are going to be speaking to the Public Accounts Committee on taxing multinationals. The local economy is not only having difficulty keeping pace with the rest of the UK, but now it seems to be heading in the opposite direction. Northern Bank's quarterly sectoral forecast today said that in the last quarter the economy shrank by 0.2%, and the Ulster Bank's PMI index, which measures the level of business activity, shows a big drop in September. Ulster Bank economist Richard Ramsey is on the line. Hi there, Richard.
Good morning.
Richard, what's happened between September and October? We've seen a big fall September and another one in October. What happened?
Well, what we've seen is, I suppose, on the positive front, manufacturing sector still seems to be faring a lot better in terms of output is falling at not as a greater rate as what's happening in the UK, and indeed we saw new orders rise in terms of October. However, what we are seeing is it's the construction and services, broader services sector are experiencing a sharp decline, and what's evidence that some of the firms' respondents are quoting is the loss of some large contracts.
So is this the kind of the FG Wilsons that we're seeing come through? You know, any big companies that are obviously changing their contracts massively? Are we seeing that impact the economic statistics as a whole? Yeah,
that's probably a key factor. And remember, it's a lot of large companies. It's the wider supply chain and the impact that losses can then filter down in terms of those supply chains, in terms of output, and then that's also appears to be filtering through in terms of on the employment front as well, where we saw an acceleration in the pace of job losses in October as well.
Richard, if we look at the wider perspective, we heard that in the last quarter the UK's economy as a whole has come out of recession. They're now small growth. I mean, it's nothing remarkable, but it is at least growth, whereas here we don't seem to be in that position. If we look at the PMI for the UK as a whole, they're around the 50 mark. That means that they're growing a little bit, and we're down at 40, which is considerably lower. What's happening here in Northern Ireland?
It's really largely due to different factors that are at play in terms of the whole construction and property downturn was a lot more severe in Northern Ireland than any other UK region, and it's still the working out of the legacy of that. Also in terms of our proximity to the Republic of Ireland, and it moved from one of the fastest growing European economies to one of the economies experiencing the deepest recession. So it's that factor as well in terms of how we link into the Republic of Ireland in terms of trade, investment and tourism is also having a bigger drag on Northern Ireland than other UK regions, and overall that's why Northern Ireland, its over-reliance on construction property in the Republic of Ireland was key to its success over much of the last decade, but it's also key to why it's lagging behind the rest of the UK going forward.
It's going to take us a little while longer then to turn our economy around and at least get back into the growth figures rather than still be reporting about these recession figures.
Yes, indeed. But it's also important to remember that it's not just... There are still sectors and individual firms which are still growing. Unfortunately, what we're finding, like with the latest survey, is that the number of firms reporting growth are being outnumbered almost 2 to 1 by those who are experiencing more acute difficulties.
Richard Ramsey, thank you very much for joining us. That's Richard Ramsey, the Ulster Bank economist. Looking at the markets and the currencies today, the pound's worth $1.59 or €1.24. That makes the euro worth 80 pence. And I would tell you the market figures, but I forgot to bring my phone in with me, so I'm going to be able to do that today. But I'll tweet it, so people can follow me on Twitter and find out the FTSE figure for this morning.
So much to remember.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I'm always keen to hear from businesses, so do get in touch with me and let me know how your business is getting on at the moment. Email me at colletta.smith@bbc.co.uk.